Okay, so let me get this on to, let me share my screen. And then once I do that, I'm going to do play from start. Okay, so welcome to the Graduate School's webinar on smartphone strategies. My name is Sarah Tynen. I work for the Graduate School, and I put on webinars on professional development related to publishing, grant writing, any kind of efforts to help you in getting a job after you graduate. But I also help with time management and focus because this is one of the largest hurdles I've found for graduate students to graduation. Why? Because graduate school is so unstructured. A lot of people struggle with how to balance kind of the flexibility that graduate school offers, which is a huge advantage, with lack of motivation, lack of accountability, and lack of structure. So let's get started. First of all, why should we care about this subject? I'm going to, hold on a second. Why should we care about this subject? So first of all, smartphones change our brains. So now in COVID times, things are a little different, but still, I do want to ask you this question, Shirley. When was the last time you were truly bored?
During, like before the coronavirus
No, like
or during the
now. Like, have
coronavirus?
you felt bored recently? And if so, when?
So I will say that having moved back home, I check my phone a lot less than when I was living alone in Boulder. Because I feel more connected now with my parents and my family,
Hmm.
and I don't have to like constantly make sure, okay, they're doing okay. Um,
Hmm.
I definitely check my phone way more when I was living in Boulder.
Okay. And so you were checking it to check on your parents?
Yes.
Okay. Make sure their health was okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Yes. That absolutely makes sense. What about like feeling bored though? Like I'm interested in feelings of boredom and if that's something you've experienced a lot recently, and if so, what was that like?
Pretty similar. So I would say that I'm less bored now than I was when I was living in Boulder because um, I felt disconnected. So I was always checking my phone. And now that I'm
Mm-hmm.
back home for the summer with my parents, I don't really need, I feel connected with my family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
So I'm less
you,
bored now.
okay. When you do feel bored, how does that make you feel?
Hmm. I feel like boredom and loneliness are kind of going hand in hand.
Mm,
Uh, I don't know if that would have been the case before the coronavirus, but I
yeah.
definitely feel that is the case now because I don't have as much engagement and interaction. And so I reach for my phone for that social interaction and to fill that void.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Um, And I feel the same way. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this webinar, right? Was to kind of address this tension that we have during COVID of needing our phones as a tool for social connection. So how can we kind of find a good balance? And so I I do want to talk about, okay, well, why should we care, right? Um and I think most people are pretty well aware that smartphones are designed to be addictive. They affect our memory, they affect our posture, and they can interfere in relationships. And if you are interested in getting more research on this, I do encourage you to just do some basic Google searches on some of these effects, right? And you'll find a lot of articles, right? And you can do that research on your own. And I think we all know this. But one reason why it's particularly important for graduate students, I think, is because one of the useful things about phones is that it creates a situation where we're never bored. So if we get that feeling of boredom, that feeling of like, oh, I have nothing to do, we can immediately do something, even if it's meditation. You know, a lot of times if I find myself waiting in line or something like that, I get to some place early and I'm waiting, I'm like, oh, let me pull out my phone and do some guided meditations. You know, it's so funny. We just, or let me listen to my audiobook. It doesn't really matter what we're using it for, right? But there's a lot of research that says that boredom is actually essential for creativity. And creativity is essential for the work that graduate students do, right? As a graduate student, you're breaking new boundaries. You're creating new knowledge from your research. That's the whole point of a PhD, right? And of a master's thesis too, is to actually create new knowledge, really do your own research and make these contributions to the field that have never been done before. But in order to do that, we need to have some room, some space to think, some space for creativity. And so it's just something to be aware of, that one of the things that phones do is they fill this empty void that can be used for creative thought that can actually help you in your graduate degree. So one activity that I encourage everyone to do is to turn off your phone, turn off all media. You know, if you have music playing in the background, turn that off. Turn off any TVs in the background, and fill a pot with water and watch it boil. When was the last time you were cooking something and you sat to watch the water boil? I know I don't do that. I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm talking to my mom on the phone, I'm doing something else. Like, it's just so rare that we actually just like sit and stop and do nothing. So I encourage you to try that for 15 minutes. You know, it might not be a pot of water boiling, but, you know, stare at the wall for 15 minutes. Don't do anything for 15 minutes and see if sitting in silence and boredom can actually see if any questions or solutions to a problem in your life or in your research come up, and make that a little bit intentional. Give it that empty space, but see, okay, are there, especially if you're coming into a roadblock in your research, do you get any good answers that come up by sitting and doing nothing? You know, we know that smartphones affect our sleep. And again, you know, graduate school is hard enough, right? We've got so much going on. You know, you're teaching, you're writing, you're doing research, and it's hard enough to try to juggle all of these things. Try to do it with as little distractions as possible, especially in COVID times. If you're with your family, there are a lot of distractions at home. Even if it's doing the dishes, vacuuming the floor, doing the laundry, there are constant distractions when you're living a home and family life at home. So to add the phone on top of that is just to add a whole nother layer of distractions that aren't necessarily helpful. And so one thing that I would like to encourage you to do is to just really think about what you want your life to look like. What do you really want for your life? And what do you want your life to look like? Do you want to use your phone to listen to audiobooks, to do some meditation, to do your workouts in the morning, to connect with your friends. Absolutely. And so I think one important thing is that I don't want this to sound like I'm encouraging everyone during this incredibly stressful time of COVID. Like, oh yeah, now start a new self-improvement project, everyone. Let's start like doing all these things to give up our phones now when like we already have enough stressors in our life. So that's not what this presentation is really about. This presentation is more about how can you create the life that you want to live? Is your phone aiding you in that, or is it hindering you through the way it's designed to distract you? To distract you from what you really love, to distract you from the people you love, from the research you love. What role is the phone playing in your life? So
Mhm.
just to take some time and reflect on that.
And Sarah, in the book that you had shared with me, How to Break Up with Your Phone, I feel like I am always referring back to that in
Yeah.
any of the talks that you give, because the book really talks about being more intentional with your phone, which is what you had just said. It's not that we're asking people during this crisis, during this global pandemic, to start a new habit all of a sudden, but it's just building more awareness and being more intentional with your phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I I try to when I am reaching for my phone, I always ask myself, well, why am I reaching for my phone? Is it because I need to just quickly calculate something for my analysis, or am I reaching it because I want to kill time on social media? So just being more intentional with the use of your phone.
Yeah, I really like that. Thank you for sharing that, Shirley. I'm so glad that book was useful for you. Um, and yeah, exactly. So it's just being a little bit more intentional about it, and just thinking about, for me, I want a life. I don't want to look back on my life and remember like all the time that I spent on my phone. And that's kind of how I think of it sometimes as morbid as that sounds. I'm like, when I'm on like death row or deathbed, what do I want my life to look like? And so, yeah, I listen to audiobooks. I do meditations on my phone. I talk to my parents on the phone. I talk to my friends on the phone. So yeah, it's an incredibly useful tool too for connection. So yeah, just being intentional. I really like that thought. Um, so you might be thinking like, okay, why should I listen to this random person named Sarah who works for the graduate school about phone addiction? Um, I wrote a dissertation. I graduated from CU with my doctorate last year. So I have been through this. I have seen the ways that the phone has helped me. I have seen the ways that the phone distracted me. And I gave up my phone in 2018. When I say gave up my phone, what I mean is I drastically limited its role in my life, in 2018, summer of 2018. Um, and that was when I gave my phone up in 2018 and I graduated in 2019. So basically, while I was writing my dissertation was when I started doing some of these phone boundaries, these things with the phone. Like, for example, I changed my phone to black and white. It helped so much with the addiction. Our phones are designed to be colorful to attract us to them. But if you make your phone black and white, it actually is like really boring and not as much fun to look at. So I changed my phone to black and white, things like that. And especially as I was writing my dissertation, I noticed how useful it was. Why? Because a dissertation is a long narrative form, and training our brains for text messages, for scrolling, for short bites of information. When you train your brain for that, even when you train your brain to listen to podcasts, which are only 20 to 40 minutes long, you're training your brain to understand short narrative form. But a dissertation is a very long narrative form. So, and it's also, the dissertation is difficult. It's annoying. Nobody wants to write a dissertation. So the phone is just this endless source of fun entertainment. So when you have the choice between write my dissertation or play on my phone will win every single time. So I just saw how it benefited me in getting the thing done, getting it written, getting it finished. I graduated, and now I can use my phone more, and I use it less in other ways. But I did see firsthand how much it helped me. I use my phone to connect. The phone is a very powerful tool, and I do encourage everyone to use it to connect with their loved ones, to connect with their friends, and to connect to the world around them. It's an incredibly useful tool for education, for learning, for storytelling. And so I do encourage that, especially during COVID, when we're so isolated otherwise. Feeling connected to the world around us is key. And the other thing too, I just want to acknowledge and emphasize is that, I have cravings too, right? And I do believe that the phone is very addictive. It's designed to be addictive. And I have cravings too all the time. I don't think they will ever go away. This is not about overcoming cravings. You're always going to have cravings to reach for the phone, to use the phone, to self soothe, to distract. And so I think, kind of like Shirley said, it's just about being intentional about those cravings and using the phone to fulfill those cravings in a useful way. Now, some of you might be thinking, I don't have a problem. I don't have phone addiction. So, or my brain is fine. I can read long narrative form. I encourage you, just as an experiment, to after you do the pot of water boiling thing, and or staring at the wall for 15 minutes doing nothing thing, try sitting down and reading a book for 15 minutes and see how many times you either get distracted by your phone or you reach for your phone. We're all academics. We all know how to read. But we are living in a world where we are skimming. We're looking for the topic sentences, the intros and the conclusions. Yes, absolutely. That's part of being an academic, is skimming things. But when was the last time you actually sat down and read a book? Read a book, not listened to an audiobook, not listened to a podcast, but actually read a book. It can be nonfiction, but I know for me, when I tried this, I couldn't do it. I was distracted by every little thing. Distracted by my phone, distracted by, the light in the room. So currently I am on a 30-day challenge to read for 15 minutes a day. And it's May 15th. So I'm on day 15 of the challenge. And I am now starting to get to the point where I can read for 20 minutes at a time. Hopefully I'll get up to 25 minutes at a time, but it was hard at first. Why? Because the smartphone has trained us to only pay attention to little snippets of information. So try it. Try sitting down and reading for 15 minutes. See how you do. And then come back and tell me whether or not the smartphone is an issue in your life or not. So
Sarah,
what are my, oh yeah?
I was also going to add, when we talk about phone addiction, I feel like most people think about, addiction to social media apps like Facebook or Twitter or, of course, Instagram. And when you were saying earlier about, some people don't think that they have an addiction, it's fine, but they don't count checking emails. And some people can get really addicted to checking emails all throughout the day. The second that they wake up in the morning to the second that they're going to bed at night, constantly checking emails, like that sucks up a lot of time as well.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really good point. Yeah. So any of these things, where you are getting short bites of information in a rapid way, that is going to change the way your brain processes information. So yeah, email counts for sure. Even YouTube or Netflix or Reddit, you might be using those on your desktop, but it's still the same idea, right? So just like you said, just being intentional about how you're using those things and how they might be affecting your ability to pay attention and how that might be affecting your ability to work on your dissertation or your master's thesis or whatever publication. Is that relatable, Shirley? Like, I don't know. Have you noticed like effects on your focus and concentration related or not related to your smartphone?
For
No.
sure. I think I I tend to get distracted by either my smartphone or my desktop. So if I'm not checking Instagram on my phone, then I end up just browsing or doing a lot of online shopping. And I
Yeah,
tell
that's
my
relatable.
and then I tell myself, oh well, but I'm not looking at my phone, so it's fine. And I'm like on H&M.com for like 15 minutes, and that sucked up all my time.
That's a really good point.
So
I'm
I'm
glad
trying
you
to be
brought that up.
mindful about what I'm doing on my computer as well. What distractions are there on my computer?
Yeah, that's relatable as well. Yeah, so I deleted Facebook off my phone years ago, but I found that I was going on it a lot on my desktop. Um, and so I deactivated my Facebook only very, very recently, because I was like, I can't even be on this anymore because it was on my desktop too. So I just had to deactivate it. But I still have Instagram, which I only use on my desktop. So it just depends on the person. I think it just depends. Like I just have a very addictive personality, so I know that I need to be a little bit more aware. Okay, so what are my strategies just to share really quick? Um, the first thing that I recommend everyone do is to track your time on your smartphone. So you can, on the iPhone, I know it'll keep track of your time on the phone and it'll give you weekly reports of what your average time on the phone was. Um, and then you can also use apps that will track your time. I recommend doing this for just 1 week. It'll track which apps you're using and when. So that's really interesting because sometimes when I was doing this, I don't do it anymore because um, I feel like I have it under control enough. But when I was tracking my time on my phone, I tracked my time on my phone for about 6 months as a way to kind of learn more about how I was using my phone. I would look back on the daily report because the daily report will tell you like at 12:29 you spent 7 minutes on your phone or whatever. And I would be like, what was I doing? Why was I spending 7 minutes on my phone at 12:29? And like, I don't even remember, I might not even remember. And I'll look back on the log or whatever, and it'll be like, oh, you were texting. And like, sometimes the texting was something I needed to do, but sometimes it wasn't. Like, sometimes it was completely superfluous. So I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm just using 7 minutes as an example, but it's just a good way to keep track of where you're doing. The app that I use is called Moment. Um, there are lots of apps though that you can use to track your screen time. Turn it off. So I always have my phone on silent during the day. There are other ways you can do this. You can do not disturb if you want. You can do airplane mode. Um, but even having the vibrate function on will trigger your stress response. So I do recommend that while you're working, you try to have some sort of do not disturb mode on. Um, at least have it out of arm's reach so that you have to get up and check it. Change where you charge it. So a lot of people charge their phone in their office next to their desk. So charge it in the kitchen. so that you have to get up and go to the kitchen to check your phone, right? It doesn't, I'm not saying you have to limit that, but just make it so that it's not just right there. A lot of people charge their phone in the bedroom. This is also really toxic because it means that you're checking your phone right before you go to bed, and then you're checking it as soon as you wake up. So first of all, that disturbs your sleep. But second of all, it's training your brain that as soon as you wake up, you're immediately checking all your notifications. It's telling your brain right away that you're going to be having short, easily accessible information throughout the day, which if you're a graduate student, you're not going to have, because that's not how research works. Research is a slow process. It's a boring process. Research involves long periods of time where you're not getting any results. You have to analyze the data for a long time. So you really want to move away from that kind of fast, short information mindset. And then digital detox. So I'll try to do a no phone day once a week or a no phone day once a month, depending on how things are going. But I try to go 24 hours without my phone. I might still go on my laptop for a few things if I really need to. Or sometimes I'll do 24 hours, no screens. So every once in a while, just to like check how I'm doing, just to kind of restart and refresh. So I recommend doing some of those things if that's something that you're interested in doing. Those are some things that you can kind of do. And the reason for this is because, we crave, Shirley, you were talking about how one of the things you use your phone for the most is human interaction. Absolutely. But when we're getting our human interaction through texting or social media, it's a false form of social interaction, right? Talking to your parents on the phone is one thing. Scrolling through social media is another. And it's more like sugar, right? You get that quick fix, you get the dopamine, you get the serotonin that you want, that you're craving. It's a quick boost. But when we are really craving social interaction, what we really need is broccoli in that moment. We need those nutritious, really rich forms of social interaction. And yeah, during COVID, that's really hard to get. And I'm really glad that you're with your family right now, so you can get that true human interaction with your family, which is so key. So for people who are not with their family, who are isolated, I do encourage you, pick up the phone and have a conversation with someone. Hear a human voice at the very least. Do a Zoom call and try to make eye contact. I mean, ask the person, like, I really need to make eye contact, because those two things are what the brain needs to feel like it's really getting human interaction. Spending time with your pets, even spending time with plants, right? Doing some gardening, spending time with your roommates, these other kinds of things that you might be able to do even during COVID. But really making sure that we're accessing kind of the vegetables that we need instead of the sugar. And another thing that I also want to emphasize is that when we use our phone to take breaks, our brain is not actually taking a break. So next time you take a break, try to put your phone down, close your eyes, just sit there and close your eyes for 5 minutes. That's a better break than picking up the phone. Taking a walk outside without the phone is another good one. Just because if you are using your phone to take a break, your brain will be exhausted because it's not getting a break.
Sarah, I wanted to add to what you said about turning off your phone or using the do not disturb feature on some phones. In the past, that's been really helpful for me, especially when I'm doing writing. I use the do not disturb function so that I can just stay focused with my writing, and then I check my phone when I need to, when it's my break time, or when I'm done with a chunk of writing.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that during COVID-19, I was checking my phone more frequently when I had the do not disturb sign on, because I was so worried about my parents and my
Yeah.
family. And so what I did instead was just select people like my mom, my dad, my sister,
Mm.
so that they can still show up on my phone even when it's on do not disturb. So it's you can select certain people. So I wanted to mention that in case other people may be
Yeah.
experiencing that same fear.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I agree too. I was so anxious about my parents as well. So it's really good to know that if they need to call for whatever reason, they can. So yeah, you can select certain people and their calls will come through. The other good thing about Do Not Disturb is that if someone calls you twice, it will go through.
Mm.
So oftentimes in an emergency, someone will call you twice. Um, that's also a good tip. Just if you're ever in an emergency and someone's not picking up their phone, try calling them twice. They might have their phone on Do Not Disturb. So yeah, that's a good tip. So here's some additional information. Shirley mentioned the book How to Break Up with Your Phone by Catherine Price. So that's a great book. Um, screenlifebalance.com. They are doing something called a quarantine challenge, and it's specifically focused on COVID-19 and how we can use our phones for a good balance during COVID-19. And you can also you might be interested in checking out this article, which was in the New York Times, which is how to create screen life balance when life has shifted to screens. Um, and so, kind of going back to what Shirley said, this is just about more self awareness. It's not necessarily about putting your screen away or putting your phone away, just doing it intentionally, especially during COVID, when so much of our life has shifted to screens. Like, how can we use it more effectively? So, I encourage you to check out that article. And then I've got a few things I'd like you to do today. So, like Shirley talked about, um, all this is good and well, but what about COVID, right? And here are, some of our human needs I have here. And a lot of these needs that we have as humans, the phone can help us fulfill. So think about what you are craving, what you need as a human, and what you're not getting right now, and maybe how your phone can help you achieve that. Um, for example, for storytelling, maybe listening to audiobooks, um, different things like that. So I'd like you to uh, let's take 4 minutes for this exercise. I'm going to do it too. And let's write out a list. So get out a pen and paper, or you can write it on your computer if you prefer. Um, or you can write it on your phone in the notes section of your phone. um, what do I use my phone for? Just write out a list. And what do I love about my phone? Because I do love my phone. I will admit that. So let's take a few minutes to do that. Okay, so Shirley, I'm just curious. Are you there?
Mhm.
Are you still working?
No, I'm finished.
Okay. I'm just curious, now that you're with your family, is your sister there as well?
No, my sister is in a different part of New Jersey.
Oh, okay. But you're with your parents, so you'll be able to know their health status. Are you thinking about potentially doing a digital detox at some point this summer? 24-hour no screen time or something like that?
I think it's more realistic since I am home. I had thought about that after having read How to Break Up with Your Phone by Catherine Price. I had thought about like doing a detox, but it wasn't realistic because I like to make sure I'm connected to my family.
Yeah.
And so I decided not to do the 24-hour or week long detox. But now that I am here, I had thought about maybe starting off with like a 24-hour detox and see how I feel.
Yeah, because um your sister can still get in touch with your parents and
Hmm.
that way, and as long as you let your sister know, like, hey, I won't be on my phone, but like, you can contact mom and dad
Hmm.
if anything urgent or whatever. So, um, would you be willing to share a little bit about what you put in your list?
Sure. Something that I did notice was the two categories were kind of related. Like I found
Yeah.
myself listing things in my what do I love about my phone category and like drawing arrows to what I use my phone for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'll list out a couple of things of what I use my phone for. Well, texting, calling, and FaceTiming. I
Mm,
use it to check Instagram. I use it sometimes. I use the calculator, pictures
mm,
to store my pictures and videos. I also use it for running music when I'm running or keeping track of how far I've ran.
mm-hmm.
I use it also as the GPS as well.
Mm,
Um, what do I love about my phone? It keeps me connected to everyone, and it is a fast communication and response tool. So, for example, earlier today, I was having an interaction with one of my RAs to try to troubleshoot something, and so instead of just having these back and forth long email conversations, I just quickly
mm,
texted her and said, "Can you try this instead?" And we just
mm.
resolved the issue very quickly via text. So it's a very fast communication response tool. The other thing that I love about my phone is that it stores all my memories. So it stores all my pictures
Mhm,
of friend
mhm,
vacations, family vacations. It just keeps all these fond memories on my phone.
mhm. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah. Um, yeah, one thing I wrote down for what do I love about my phone was it goes everywhere with me, which I kind of love. Like it's this feeling of like companionship almost.
Like a safety blanket.
Yeah. And it's a source of easy information. If I ever have a question about anything, I can just Google it.
Mm,
So it's nice. It's convenient. It's really cool. But kind of like I was saying, as researchers, in graduate school, we do have to remember that when we're doing research, we don't always
yeah,
get the answer right away.
exactly.
But yeah, I do love my phone. It's interesting. Okay, so another thing I would like us to take some time to write out, which I will do this alongside everyone else, is what am I craving when I reach for my phone? And the next question is, what do I miss? So, um, one of the things I noticed when I was doing this exercise before was like, I really miss reading. Like, I never do that anymore, which is why I'm doing that 15-minute a day challenge right now. But I really missed reading. I know other people who play musical instruments have express this to me, like, I really miss playing the guitar. I really miss playing the flute or whatever it is. So think about what it is in your life that you miss, not necessarily related to the phone per se, but what's something that you used to do that you don't do anymore that you miss. So let's take a few minutes for this. Okay, Shirley, how are you still working or are you done?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I'm done.
Okay, cool. So do you want to share a few of the things that you crave when you reach for your phone? Obviously, this is when you're reaching for your phone, perhaps for like a more superfluous reason or whatever, or it could be necessary, but.
What I am craving when I reach for my phone is mostly visual stimulation. So what
Mm.
you were saying earlier about how phones are meant to be addictive because they're so colorful, there's all this creativity and all these visuals. It looks a lot more appealing than my dissertation, that's for
Yeah.
sure. So I'm usually craving the latest updates from anthropology or apartment therapy to see what the
Mm-hmm.
new designs are or new
Okay.
looks, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I'm usually craving are updates from my friends, which is it's kind of silly because like I could just text them to see what's
Mm-hmm.
happening in their life instead of looking on their Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I also think some things that I'm craving for when I reach for my phone is something funny. So I look to
Mm.
Instagram to see any like funny Instagram posts or short stories just for
Mm.
laughter. I
Mm-hmm.
think what I miss when I'm not using my when I'm using my phone is I miss having long in-person conversations. So
Mm-hmm.
just sitting on a couch and having long conversations with people. The other thing is before I broke up with my phone, I used to keep my phone with me in my bedroom as an alarm clock. And I got rid of that bad habit because I found myself, it was the first thing that I reached for in the morning. And then I would automatically check my email, check Instagram, and then notice that like 20 minutes had gone by and I was still in bed. And I had intentionally wanted to wake up early so that I could have a longer breakfast. So now that I've removed my cell phone from my bedroom, I wake up earlier and then I just start my day earlier without looking at my phone for at least an hour before I get started with my day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I agree with what you were saying earlier. I also miss reading. Um, my Kindle is black and white, and like you
Me
said,
too.
it's not as attractive. So I do miss reading a lot, and I think being in the situation that we're in, I found myself trying to read more books as a challenge. So now that I have the summer off, and I'm not taking any classes and I'm not TAing any classes, I can do more reading, more fun reading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. I like that. I think one of the things I wrote down in what do I miss is I wrote free time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I miss having free time. And I do think that's something that I can create in my life. I just have to block it out. Like, okay, this is going to be free time or whatever. But yeah, I think that's one thing I've noticed is like, I feel like I don't have any free time, which isn't true. You know, I can make that time, but it's just like, I always fill my time with something,
Mm-hmm.
and the phone kind of facilitates that. So I think I might try to make some free time for myself this weekend. So in thinking about this, just remember, okay, so I talked about sugar, I talked about broccoli. So, but what about the meat? Now I am a vegan, so I like to talk about this in terms of tofu, but whatever your dietary needs are, whether it is meat or tofu. So we know we need the broccoli, which is those basic nutritional needs, those basic human needs, right, that we talked about before. These are maybe some of those basic human needs that we need, which we can use our phone for, of course, or not. But this, so that's kind of like more like the broccoli, and this is more like the tofu or the meat, which is creativity. Actually creating things, making projects. So ask yourself, what fills your creative needs? Cooking, right? Creating a meal out of disparate ingredients. You're creating something. Gardening, right? Taking a seed and blooming it into a flower or into a vegetable. Knitting, right? Taking thread and creating a scarf. Music or art, drawing, painting, playing an instrument, singing, even just singing in the shower, right? Can be one way to fill this creative need that we have. And then writing. So, creative writing. This might be in the form of just journaling. It might be in the form of writing short stories, for short fiction stories. It might be in the form of short nonfiction stories about yourself and your life, or just writing about your research too, if that is something creative for you. So those are just some ideas, but just thinking about I do believe that creativity is a basic human need, but it is really the substance of your life. And so again, this is not a presentation about how to be a better person, about how to create, how to give up things so that, you're a better person. That's not what this is about. This is really to just encourage you to ask yourself, what do you want your life to look like? And I do hope that less screen time and more creativity time will help you craft the life that you really want, a life that is fulfilling and satisfying, right? A life that is colorful, right? We reach for the phone for those colorful things, but can you create a life that is colorful in and of itself? Maybe that's through creating art. Maybe it's just through cooking a meal, but you can create a life that actually has colorful taste and substance to it. that goes beyond just a screen. So, yeah, Shirley, do you have any thoughts about that? Do you know what your creativity outlet is? Do you have one?
So my creative outlet during this time was cooking. But now that I'm home, my mom does all the cooking for me, which I feel very spoiled and lucky. But my creative outlet now is not music, art. So I brought home my watercoloring book and I paint. That's my creative outlet.
That's awesome. And I'm sure you would agree that anyone can paint, right? You don't have to be a quote
Oh, I'm not
unquote
a good
artist.
painter. Yeah, I just paint for fun.
But you can just, whatever, you just creating color on the page, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that can be incredibly useful and helpful, right? And it's not for an art show, right? It's not for an art gallery. Like you said, it's just for fun. So
Mm-hmm.
not really having any goal or outcome for these creative projects, just doing it just for the pure sake of doing it, can be incredible. For me, one thing I wanted to add to the connectivity part is doing things like meditation and yoga can be one way to feel connected to kind of a universal community, because there is communities all around the world that are meditating and doing yoga. You can kind of feel connected that way, as one way to still feel connected, but kind of in a more abstract way in that sense. Any questions, Shirley, for me?
No, I think you covered it. Every time I hear this presentation in different formats and in different contexts, I always get something new out of it. So thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm glad we share this shared hobby of no screen time. So I think you know about our resources, but I am going to just emphasize it for people who are watching after this, when I record this. So the Grad Plus seminar series, those are the seminars with Leslie. And Shirley, are you part of Climb or
Yeah,
Fuel?
so I'm part of Climb. And then I guess next semester I'll be part of the belt
Oh,
buckle.
cool. That is exciting because you passed comps and everything. So you're ready to
Yep.
just get started with the next thing. So can you tell people who are listening a little bit about the seminar and like what you get out of it and why it's helpful?
Sure. So the seminar, it was originally titled Graduate Writing Seminars with Dr. Leslie Blood. And then this past year, they retitled it to Endurance PhD Seminars. And I think that the title really speaks to what these seminars are about, is how to increase your endurance in PhD, because a PhD program is not a sprint, as you mentioned before. It requires a long attention span and it requires a long duration endurance. And so it's more of a marathon. And so the seminars are broken up into different categories depending on whichever stage you're in your PhD program, whether you're a first year, second year, just starting out. I don't remember what the name of the first category is, or whether
Build your
you're a third.
base.
Build your base. Yeah, building your foundation, getting the tools ready. And then the other category is if you are a third year or fourth year PhD student who's just finished their comps, or in some departments they call it prospectus, and it's called the climb. You're now applying these strategies that you've learned in different contexts. And then there's also another one, I think Fuel. I don't remember what Fuel is.
Fuel is second year.
Oh, Fuel is second year. And then the last one, Belt Buckle, which is aptly named as well. That's when you're finishing your dissertation. You're ready to get on the job market, whether you're doing industry or academia. And Leslie teaches you about how to juggle both finishing your dissertation and begin applying for jobs out in the real world.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next one we have, thank you for sharing that, Shirley. It's always good to get a student's perspective on that too. I was also part of the seminars. When I was going through, I started the seminars with Leslie in summer 2018 when I was working on my dissertation. Definitely helped me finish my dissertation, I will say that. And then we also have this writing support here. So Shirley actually helped me get a new format. So I'm curious, and I did the format, I did the new format myself on Thursday, and kind of filled out the form that we worked on, Shirley, and did the spreadsheet and everything. And I really liked it. Like, I was doing it for my own writing project that I'm working on, just to see how I liked it and how it worked. So hopefully that will kind of gain some momentum, but we'll do that every Tuesday and Thursday morning. So I'm curious, Shirley, since you helped me develop it, how you like it next week. I know this week was crazy for you with moving and everything, but yeah. So, and then we have online workshops, this online resources page. So the online resources page, there's a ton of stuff on there. That's where this webinar will be posted. We have the digital credential badges, and Shirley, I did see your application for the leadership badge. So we'll get that to you as soon as possible. There's just email me if you have any questions about the badges. You can also meet with me one-on-one. I'm happy to go over any papers you're working on, career consultation, research project consultation. I'm working with a student on their dissertation proposal right now. So any stage in the graduate school process, I'm happy to help with. And feel free to just email me at this address if you have any questions at all, if you need a copy of the PowerPoint or anything like that. But that's pretty much it, Shirley. Any last thoughts or questions or anything like that?
I would just encourage graduate students to try any of these workshops. I think it's, especially now, given the global pandemic, we are alone more than ever, and we need to support each other. And we also need strategies to get through this PhD program. And I'll say that I really benefited from a lot of these workshops, having built my foundation and having several of these tools already in my toolbox, and it's supported me in this pandemic that we're in.
Good. By the way, Shirley, I don't know if you're working on any publications this summer, but I am doing a boot camp. I'm doing the 12-week boot camp again this summer, but this time using the Belcher book again. So I know you already have the book. I know you already did the boot camp, but if you find it useful to meet with people over Zoom about the publication every week, we'll be doing basically a similar format to what we did in the fall, which is 15 to 30 minutes of instruction and then 15 to 30 minutes of breakout. We'll do breakout groups in Zoom and meet with each other about our publication. So if you're interested in that, I'm starting that June 4th.
Great.
All right. Well, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank
Bye.
you, Shirley. Have a great day.
You too.